COVID. Corona. Facts. Facts.
Emergency medicine remix.
Whether you live or die, might rely. Whether you describe the truth or not, but the proof we got ain't no lie. The booster shot be the last chance of the fifth.
Welcome to Emergency Medicine Remix, episode X22, booster shot. Hashtag VaxFacts. As usual, we don't have all the answers. No one does. This is an open table and a conversation seeking first and foremost the truth. We want to be honest and honor the spirits, those who have voices at the table and those who are not represented in this forum right now. Guys, first and foremost, how you doing? How you been doing? How you feeling? These are scary times. These are times of changing, as they always used to say back in the days. Speak.
I don't know about you guys, but in Philadelphia, we're officially, I guess, in the second wave. I think that's everywhere across the nation. I can speak for Philly, where we are having increased numbers, but for some reason, the patients aren't as sick as in the first round. And I feel like maybe that's because people are coming in sooner because you know what symptoms to look out for. I think maybe we're not perceiving them to be as sick because we're used to taking care of COVID patients and sick patients. So we don't really have as much fear and like trepidation and, nervousness about approaching these patients. But I do feel like it's picking up, which is why this is a great time for us to have this discussion about vaccines, because we're officially in the second wave. We don't know if there's going to be a third wave, but definitely over here, things are picking up, but the patients aren't as sick, which feels a little bit reassuring, but still not. I don't feel completely comfortable because it's still a very real threat out in these streets.
I mean, I agree. Yeah, like in terms of a thing in New York, same thing. I wasn't here I was at Atlanta when the peak happened in New York in March and April. I was kind of joking around, I feel like a fake hero because I was in Atlanta when things were kind of calm and New York was getting killed. And like when it came to New York, things were bad in Atlanta. It's kind of dismissed the surges and stuff. But in New York, it's definitely rising again. So I work at two hospitals. One is the academic center, and then one is a community hospital where there's bare minimum stuff, not very low population, number of people come to the emergency room. Like honestly, in that hospital, the lower one, I was probably seeing 0 patients, I think, with COVID for a long period of time. But every shift now is like 5, 6, 7 coming in with COVID symptoms. And I think the scary thing, I agree with Chitty, like there's a lot of patients who are not super sick. I remember when we were in Atlanta, we were like intubating patients or they're very in severe distress in terms of breathing. But I feel like it's not as bad, but I think what's making me nervous is that like patients are coming in with no fever, no other symptoms, but they have other random symptoms like just confusion, and then become COVID out of nowhere, right? So I think that's the thing, is kind of like we're always thinking about, hey, just respiratory stuff, it's fevers, but we've been getting a lot of patients that just have random other symptoms, just like fatigue, or like had one lady who was just confused and we were concerned that she may have had a stroke, but she was COVID, and so I think that's scary. I think for me, I'm getting scared. I don't know, this wave is making me scared because I think it's just like how the country is going. I think it was bad initially in the beginning of the pandemic, but it's just like looking at California. Like I have a good friend in California who said they're just preparing for the worst right now. And there's 60,000 people that were tested positive yesterday. So it's just like, I think it's just the direction.
Say it again. Run it back. You know the format. Yeah. You know the format. Run it back. How many people were positive?
60,000. That's 4 zeros after the 6, and that's in just the state of California.
So I live in one of the small Atlanta suburbs, Decatur, where everything's greater. And the city of Decatur only has 22,000 people, so that's like 3 times or the entire population of Decatur. Yeah. Or if everybody got in Decatur COVID 3 times. I want to put this into some perspective.
Yeah.
And if I'm hearing you guys right, there's been this kind of almost bimodal, and what that means is that it was really high one time, it goes down, and now maybe it's going up again, but it looks different. So for Chitty, you said it looks a little different than it did. It was worse on the front end, right? Mm-hmm. Jawad, you said, you were down here with us, and it was, it was pretty bad on the front end. And, then you went up to New York where it was bad, whereas now not as bad. But yet you got all these other things that are not quite the same as they were on the front end. So it's atypical. So I'm going to come in and say for us, it's all those things. Here in Atlanta, we've got actually a second wave, and I mean, it looks bad. I mean, are the numbers as bad as they are in New York and California? No, but does it look bad? Oh, absolutely. I mean, this last week we just got crushed, and we are running out of room to place people because there's so many PUIs or people under or persons under investigation for COVID. And just like you guys hit on it, it looks different. I mean, that was our last podcast when we first talked about this early in the spring. Remember, we were talking about the unknown, the fear of the unknown. We didn't know what COVID was. We didn't know how deadly it was. Yeah. We didn't know how undeadly, because the case fatality rates weren't established. We weren't actively contact tracing. We weren't doing any of the stuff to give us good information. So you had this unknown, and we realize now we're seeing stuff that's still unknown. You got people coming with rashes, strokes, altered mental status, blood clots to the lungs. I've had people who have heart failure now, young, healthy people. So that's a little unnerving. I know, sometimes you like to believe, okay, we've been through this, we beat it the first wave, but it's still a fear. Now I'm gonna hit you guys with the second part of that. That's the fear of the disease has been here for, let's say, 8-9 months now. What about the offered prevention? People are afraid of the prevention.
And people are afraid. That's actually really funny, because I feel like when it first happened, everyone was like, oh my God, but if we get this vaccine, everything's going to be okay. If we just get this vaccine. And now that it's very real and we actually have this vaccine, people are like, I'm not getting that. I'm not touching that. So I think it's a real thing. Are you guys getting the vaccine? I think that's what most people are asking, because, they're looking at us as healthcare providers as guinea pigs and as like the informed public, right? If we get the vaccine, I think that more people would feel a little bit more comfortable getting the vaccine, just because, we're the informed, I guess, so to speak. So are you guys planning on getting the vaccine?
Joy, you were first in line, so I like to say you were in front of the line on the front line. So you were double number one. So talk, man. What did you do?
So I actually got the vaccine 2 days ago.
Sell out. No, I'm just joking. I'm just joking. Good job.
This podcast is brought to you by Microsoft. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, guys. I did not sell my Apple products. I don't have any Microsoft stuff. Bill Gates is not controlling me. I mean, I'll be honest. I think, we were talking about this before, the fear of the disease. And I think it is pretty, not just for the lay people, but I think just us in healthcare, we have a little bit of a fear with the vaccine as well, too, because we're concerned how fast, I guess, it came. Usually vaccines takes a lot of time, a couple of years, maybe even longer, right? So I get the fear. I was nervous, but I think for me, at the end of the day, I had a lot of personal things. I think, again, we're doctors, but we also have other things that we're trying to protect, right? Like we have, our family, our spouses, our kids, and so I think for me, it was just that, every time I would come home, I was just this intense fear. Like, am I going to expose my son to this? Am I going to expose my wife to this? And then they're honestly the two most important things in my life, right? And so one of the fact, I love Atlanta, I miss Atlanta, but the reason we came back to New York was to be with our family. And so I'm nervous to see my parents. My dad has a lot of health problems. Also, 2 weeks ago was my wife's uncle in Pakistan actually died from COVID, and he has the same health issues as my dad. And so I think that's what that kind of got real for me. And I think, again, we always talked about this before. We all have sentinel events, right? And I think for me, we had this nervousness about the vaccine. I was always siding to the part where I want the vaccine. But I think when knowing this, Sana's uncle passed away, who had the same health issues as my dad, I think made me really nervous. Hey, I need to protect people that are around me. Again, this vaccine is not just for us, it's for the broader community as well, too. And I think for me, the fear is that we don't know what this vaccine is going to do. But as at the end of the day, I want to end up protecting my family and the people that are important to me at the end. And I think that at the end, that's why I made the decision, hey, I'm going to get this vaccine at the end of the day. And the other things, I think I'm just tired, of this pandemic. I just want to kind of see maybe this is our path to normalcy. And so why not, I think we're very pessimistic, where we're kind of worried about what if this thing is going to be good. What if this thing is going to lead to a better future? I don't know. So I guess I'm a guinea pig. We'll find out what happens.
It's gonna be my
but
because
yeah.
I mean, I was all gung ho for this vaccine because I was like, yes, science. And it was this quote, like, science is the only thing that's going to get us through this. And I really, truly believe that. And I was like, yes, I'm going to get the vaccine. I'm going to be first in line. But then I got the email 2 days ago, and I was like, might want to wait. And I think I told my family that I was going to get the vaccine. And I think a lot of that is what's kind of making me feel a little bit more hesitant now, as opposed to when we first had our beginning podcast about the vaccine. And I was like, yes, vaccine. But my mom was like, of course, like every mom, Nigerian, African mom is like, what about your fertility? And I'm like, what about my fertility? We don't know, you know? So I think as a woman who, you know, I'm newly married, like these are things I need to think about. Like, we don't know what's going to happen with fertility. We don't know if this vaccine is safe in pregnancy. Theoretically, there's a very low risk in pregnancy, but, you know, in the 2 major studies, pregnant women and children were excluded. So we're only...
Say that again. Say that one more time.
Yeah, pregnant women and children, so anyone below the age of 16 was excluded in the major trials, and that was approximately 70,000 person these trials. So we don't know the risk. And I think that that's what's causing me to have a little bit of pause. The easy answer is yes, I will be getting the vaccine, but I do have some pause. And, you know, I think a lot of my colleagues are like showing their stickers, like I got the shot, showing pictures on Instagram. And I'm really kind of feeling oppressed by that because I don't know, it's making me feel like, okay, am I doing the right thing by waiting? But I don't want to be first in line for anything. The only thing I want to be first in line for is pizza, honestly. So if it's not,
is that also a shade at me sending you the picture on Tuesday?
Yeah, you
are the sticker.
You guys are oppressing me.
Jeez.
Stop it, okay?
And I put it on Instagram.
Right. It's like, oh, I voted. It's like, okay, we know you voted. Dang, we don't need to know you got the shot too. You know, it's oppressing me. So please stop. I will be getting the shot, but I'm not going to be getting it in this first wave because I don't like to be first for anything except for pizza, food, Chinese food. If that's what you're offering, I'll be first in line for that, but not for no vaccine. Mm-mm.
So, I mean,
free money, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and money too. And
no, see, it's interesting because I was thinking about this too. Like I always tell everybody, right? Like I'm really into technology, into cars and stuff. You never get the first generation, right? So I always tell people that don't do that. But I don't know. I think this is different. I feel like this is so different. So
I'm gonna, you know, because this is what the OG did. I'm gonna remix this. So I'm gonna chop it up. I'm with you, and I told people, I said, yeah, I'm gonna get it, but I'm gonna give myself time to educate myself. You know, because there is such a thing as informed consent. Mm-hmm. And I have a right as a patient, as well as a practitioner or provider or doctor, whatever, you know, other term you want to call on my medical side, to educate myself. The problem is that people don't realize there's a consequence to that. If you're going to delay, that's okay. I got to be willing to accept the risk of possibly delay, just as willing as I'm to accept the risk of taking something that hasn't been proven, you know, adverse effect free for a long period of time because it's new. So if people are willing to have that honest discussion, take that time to educate themselves, they have every right to wait to make decisions. That's called informed consent. And scientists and physicians are no different. And then those of us who have a legitimate history where the science did fall down. There were some effects that we didn't expect. Let's not act as physicians as if, you know, everything we put out there is gold and, you know, and everybody, you know, it's a silver bullet and everybody gets better and we eradicate a disease with no, you know, collateral damage. That's not the way the world works. There are consequences to everything, both good and bad. So we have to have that honest conversation with our patients. And I think this forum where we're able to say that openly with one another, that, hey, yeah, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I remember when the RotaShield vaccination for rotavirus had intussusception as a consequence, and they had to pull it. Late 90s, early 2000s. Was there a body count that was pretty large with that? No, far more kids died from diarrheal illness than from rotavirus vaccination. But was there some damage? Yes. So we got to be honest about that. Tell your patients, is there a side effect? Yes. But we believe the risk is greater than any potential side effect. then let me do the due diligence. Give me the information. Let me read it. Help me break it down. Help explain to me. And that's what we're hoping to do here. We're not immunologists. We're not epidemiologists, but we are workers of public health. We are the front line. And let no one tell us differently. So we know when we've seen things that we've offered that sometimes, wow, man, I didn't expect that to happen. But it's always with the spirit of doing a good, doing no harm, that the risk is far less than the benefit. So I feel you. Am I going to get it? Yeah, I'm going to get it. Am I finished my due diligence? No, I'm closer. I'm closer than I've ever been. And I don't have a timestamp on that, but I'm closer than I've ever been. And let me shout out Pastor Nick Talafaro, who gave us an opportunity to say just that, to speak to our people just in the wonderful city of Philadelphia, city of brotherly love. We feel the love. That as Black and brown people, we get your fears, but let's be honest, we're between a rock and a hard place right now. We got a disease that disproportionately kills us, with a history, with a system that has not always done right by us. And we have to have this catch-22, or what is called a Hobson's choice, which is the lesser of the two evils. I'm going to tell you right now, leaning on the side of history, the vaccination is the lesser of two evils. Far more of us have died from infectious diseases, and still are, than for any iatrogenic, that means a harm caused by science or a medical practitioner. That's just the way it is. That's the way it is. And we got to accept that. But I understand you want to do that math for yourself. So do it. But while you're doing it, do it with social distancing. Do it with a mask. Yeah. Do it 6 feet apart instead of 6 feet under. I'm going to preach to you right now, because that is not a choice. You can't say, I ain't doing a mask, I ain't doing no vaccinations, I ain't gonna do it, because that's irresponsible. I'm done. I'm off.
I mean, I agree with you. I just feel like this vaccination, and I mean, this is my own opinion, but like nothing's really going to change in my life and the way I'm practicing my life after this vaccination, which is why I don't feel like I need to be patient zero for this vaccination, because I was like, oh, once we get vaccinated, do we still have to wear masks? They were like, yes. I was like, okay, do we still have to social distance? I'm like, yeah. They're like, yes, because, ultimately to get like herd immunity in this country, like that's what 75 to 80% immunity, it's going to take years, because this thing's going to be rolling out slowly. So we're still going to have to be doing the mask. Up until this point, I've been very diligent about, being smart about socially distancing and using PPE. And I've been in the most exposed population of this virus, and I feel like I've been doing a good job with just being smart, and I feel like that's going to continue. So I don't think I need to be patient zero and oppress people with stickers saying that I got vaccinated in order for that to make people do it. I mean, I am actively educating myself, especially as a woman, because that's the perspective that I want to share. So I know that the American College of Gynecologists, and I know that the Society of Maternal Fetal Medicine both put out statements saying, we don't know what this is going to do in pregnant women. Theoretically, the risk is low, but you have to discuss with your practitioner and see whether or not your risk and benefits, what weighs out. And so for me, I'm in a population where they're like, girl, go get that vaccine because of my exposure at work. And so I think they're going to start a new trial in pregnant women like next month. So the information about that is not going to come out for a while, but I definitely will get the vaccine eventually, sooner rather than later. And I know that a lot of my pregnant coworkers are getting the vaccine for that very reason, because our exposure and our risk. I think COVID, it's 2 times more like deadly, or you'll have 2 times likely to have critical illness in a pregnancy than someone who is not pregnant in the same cohort, age, comorbidities, and all that. So the risk is there. And I think that we have some promising data with just the general public, and that we can extrapolate that to pregnant women at this time. So I'll be good.
And we feel you. We feel you. So what you're saying, what you're basically saying is that you don't want to see this right here. This is what you don't want to see, this little thing right here.
I hate that thing.
That right there?
People are oppressed. I don't like the oppression. Like, okay, guys, get it.
I'll have you know, I didn't anywhere.
You would have.
All right, I just had to do it. I had to do it.
It's this thumb right here. That was the thumb.
You would have posted it if you were still on social media, because that's what people are doing out here, trying to oppress you. But it's okay. I will not be swayed. I know what I'm doing. I'm gonna wait for a little longer, and then I'm gonna get it probably on the second wave. But otherwise, I'm
because
still
you mentioned the statement. It reminds me of like what I just read like the other day on Reddit, where a woman was like, my husband got the vaccine, and the only side effect is that he keeps telling people that he's got the vaccine. So that's the thing with social media, is like everybody just keeps saying that, hey, look, I got the vaccine. So that's like the only side effect I can think of right now.
The short-term memory is gone, right? So let's talk about it. So in the meantime, I'm going to introduce this song. We're going to let this bump play. It's Mixed Messages by Big Crit. There's a lot out there. You just heard us have slightly varied opinions on when and how we were going to do this. So we're going to let this ride. And in the meantime, educate yourself. Remember that. Remember, the most important and the most effective forms of medicine are education and prevention. My wife just hit me on something she wanted me to blush out with while this is rocking, is that we believe that information and knowledge are the same. They are not. We believe that wisdom and knowledge are the same. They are not. We believe that discernment, knowledge, and wisdom are the same. They are not. But they.
Shout out to wisdom.
There you go. Right, exactly. Wisdom is the application of knowledge. Knowledge is basically the possession of facts that are truthful. Information can be false or correct. So we got to be able to do the due diligence, and that's called discernment. How do you figure out between what is real, what is fact, what is fiction, and then apply it in wisdom, and then garner it and make it a part of your own narrative and yourself where it's actually true. So that's it. So let's move on, guys. I'm gonna fade this out. Let's talk about vaccines in general. Let's talk about what they have done for us over the years. There've been some positive things, there've been some negative things. Which one of you want to grab the mic on this one? Because we act as if, this is, silver bullet, shot, done. I'm good forever. Just give me a shot, doc, and, and I'll be all right. You've heard that before. Benefits, risks, you guys know them?
Benefits, we don't have polio. Benefits, when was the last time you saw mumps? Measles, anybody? Like these are the benefits. These are illnesses that wreaked havoc in a time when they were new and novel, and now we don't even think about them or bat an eye. I think the benefits are clear. There are illnesses that have been eradicated. Like, that's crazy if you think about it. There are illnesses that have been eradicated secondary to vaccine. So I think that speaks volumes. I think that is the benefit. I don't know if there's any other benefit that we need to talk about besides the fact that they work. Absolutely. So you crushed it. I mean, like, oh my gosh. Get your girl. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, but seriously though.
Right. Absolutely. So, we talk about all these potentials. It could, but there was no doubt polio, measles, mumps, rubella, smallpox, pertussis, a whooping cough. These things were straight out crippling and killing people, and you don't even see them anymore. You forgot they even exist because the beauty of, immunology and the people who invented that, vaccinations, and the public health agents who, mandated that children had to have these, before going to school. It's been a long march, but let's not throw that out the window. Let's not forget the benefits of that, and forget about what it was like when our parents and our parents' parents, I knew people who had polio. I actually had a friend down the street. Their big sister was on braces, arm braces and leg braces because she had polio. That is big that you don't see kids walking around like that anymore. So, that being said and done, tetanus. Shoot, I've seen a tetanus patient before in my internship. It's ungodly. It was like something from The Ring or one of those horror movies where the person's back is all arching, they're breaking their bones and stuff. It was absolutely horrible. So when you see what diseases can do, sometimes it creates a real perspective of the benefits and the wonders of immunizations. But go ahead, Jawad. I'm grabbing the
No, I
mic.
mean,
Go ahead.
no, I think that's just the point I was going to make. I think is that I think we're so privileged in the Western world where a lot of these diseases have been eradicated, and I think we become ignorant of the potential of what it can do, right? And so I think that's where like, hey, we're not seeing anything going around, so what's the point of vaccinating, right? And I think again, in terms of a lot of these diseases have been eradicated, but again, in terms of polio, they're pretty rampant in two countries in the world right now. That's Pakistan, my country, and Afghanistan, right? And so again, like you have a lot of people who are trying to get vaccinated in these countries. They're trying to do a strong effort, but there is unfortunately, the Taliban believe that you're going to be sterilizing the Muslim population, and so that's where they're basically attacking these health workers and preventing them from being vaccinated. But it's still pretty rampant. I mean, in Chitty, like one of our attendings at Stony Brook had polio, and whenever he walked, he had a limp, right? And that's because he was affected by polio. That's something that we're seeing, and so I think a lot of us are not seeing the outcomes. I mean, in terms of Chitty was saying about measles, but measles has been over the past couple of years, like it's rising again because again, there's a whole movement of people not vaccinating at all. And again, if we were able to vaccinate, we would see very low numbers. I think when I was reading an article before, I think it was like 800,000 in the past years. Either I forget, it was like I get confused, either 200,000 deaths or like it was like or 200,000 cases or 800,000 cases. But these cases in the past year or two have been really, really skyrocketing in terms of measles. But I think that's the thing. I think since we're not seeing it and we're not talking about it, I think people think that nothing is happening. So why would I continue to vaccinate myself when everything is fine?
Yeah. And go ahead, Chitty. Go ahead.
Oh no. I was just agreeing with him because I just think that because things are going well, people are like, oh, there's nothing wrong. And I think I don't know if we're moving to this point yet, but I think this, the risk of getting vaccines, like if you guys come to me and talk to me about autism, like I'm not going to speak about that because that's been debunked several times over. If you want to look for articles, there are articles, there's research, there's extensive research that shows that there's no correlation. So I really don't know what else there would be besides like the risk in marginalized communities, which that's real. Just feeling that fear in marginalized communities about getting vaccines, especially in this day and age of social media, where there's so much misinformation, where anybody and everybody could have a platform and speak and say whatever they want, and it can just be consumed in mass quantities. And so I think that there's a lot of misinformation that's being spread right now. Definitely know our sordid history of the government and giving medications and vaccines and pills and doing experiments on these marginalized communities. But I think at this point, we should acknowledge that that's something and not just say, why are people so untrusting? Why are people so distrustful of the government? And say, what are you doing to make yourself trustworthy? Like, let's switch it. Like, what are these companies doing? What is the government doing to make themselves trustworthy to these marginalized communities, as opposed to being like, oh, why are you fearful? Why don't you have trust in us? You know what I mean? Like, let's switch it around, because why are we attacking the people who are fearful?
Right. Absolutely. I think, beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. Go ahead, Joanne.
I 100% agree. I think one of the, we need to be able to provide people with knowledge, I think, but I think the problem is the people who are pro-vaccine in terms of scientists kind of get this arrogance about them, and they kind of, they basically kind of try to humiliate individuals who are kind of have questions. Because remember, not everybody is gung-ho, vaccine causes autism, right? There's different components of being anti-vax, I guess, right? There's parents who are concerned about getting all these vaccines in a short period of time, right? Like getting this, I guess, in terms of how the vaccines are scheduled. But a lot of people are nervous about things. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, we saw in history, we see that there's a whole issue with the government being involved in giving disease to people, whether it's minority groups or not. And I think even with this COVID vaccine, I think people were nervous how quickly, I guess, this vaccine was established. And I think, again, and then the problem is that we politicized everything about COVID, right? Whether it was wearing masks or social distancing, these precautions. But again, now you had a leadership that was promoting, hey, we're going to get vaccines right away. That's going to basically get this to go away. And then I'm going to get elected in 2020. And then you have like, hey, look, we're not going to take vaccines that this guy is going to be promoting. So I think that you have this issue where people have this sense of big mistrust when it comes to the vaccines, and I get that. But I think, you know, we have to be able to address it with humility and with just answering people's questions. I think that's the problem. We get too aggressive or condescending, and I think that's what turns people off to listen to us.
Absolutely. So let's talk about it. So, you know, we have access to information that sometimes our listeners and sometimes our colleagues are just arrogantly ignorant of. And here it is. So in 1955, when the polio vaccine was actually basically disseminated, people were lining up, and there were a certain fraction of individuals who received the vaccines, kids who actually accidentally got the live virus and actually came down with polio.
Yeah.
It's honest. Let's admit that. When you hide that history, you lose credibility amongst people.
Yes.
When you say we messed up, it shouldn't have been this way. And this is how we try to prevent it from happening in the future. And here are all the times where we caught that mistake and made it right. So did people get polio from the polio vaccine? Yeah, that happened. It was a Northern California vaccination manufacturer who actually had the live virus. And I think it was 120,000. We're going to post the articles where you can find the stuff. Because we're about, you know, educating yourself. Remember that. And what you hear rocking in the background is knowledge, learn. It is also, I'm going to rock after that, be safe. These are tunes that we like to, you know, have a little curation of the subconscious of the art blending with the science. So learn and be safe. And the way you do that is by educating yourself. So 120,000 people actually got the live virus and developed neurologic problems. That is a real mistake. Have more people been saved than that? Yeah. Is that number infinitesimally small? Yeah. But if you're one of those people, that changes how you see vaccinations, right? So it is an obligation of those who are with the larger microphones. We have a small mic here. We have a small platform, but it's the obligation of those who know this history as well to say, yeah, that has happened. And these are all the steps we've taken to prevent that. Were there times of sterility and other consequences? Yeah. Was there ever a time where medications have caused more harm than good that we said? Absolutely. I can run through them there, you know, from Serotype to Zygris to Vioxx. This is in my lifetime alone. Let's talk about how we learn from our mistakes, how we're trying to prevent that, because nothing is perfect. And when we come in with the air of perfection, we have already alienated people who know better. Right. Let's not presume these people are dumb. We're in a time now that information is readily available. Yeah. And whether we want to hide it or not, people can go and do the math themselves and say, oh, wait a minute. How come you didn't bring this up? You said that, you know, there's no chance of getting it. But in 1955, it happened. Why can't it happen now? Good question. You're right. Let's talk about it.
And I think that that's what I meant by, like, let's promote, you know, these companies and the government being trustworthy, be transparent, because you can't attack the person for having distrust. You need to see, what are you doing to promote trust, you know? And I think that that's where the paradigm needs to shift. I think Jawad brought up, like, a lot of people are concerned about the speed at which the vaccine was curated at this point. And I mean, initially, that was one of my concerns too, because, like, you know, vaccines have to go through many processes of checks and balances. You know, there's experimental stages and trials, and then has to go through here and there just to make sure that it's safe for human consumption, right? And this happened in less than a year. So that is faster, much faster than we've ever seen with a vaccine. But I did my research, and, you know, they weren't starting from scratch. Let's start there. They weren't starting from scratch. It's not the first time that we've seen a SARS coronavirus vaccine. This is not the first time. So, you know, there are people who dedicate their lives to coming up with vaccines and virology and immunology. And this is not a new thing. This is new for us because it's in our faces now, but there has been science that has been started a while ago about these vaccines, MERS, SARS, any type of subset of this virus. Yes, this is a novel one, but they have information about how these viruses work, how they're transmitted, and how to provide immunity for a grand scheme. So it's not like we were started from scratch. So that's one. And two, when there's money, there's speed. The whole world was under attack at this point. The rich and famous were under attack, you know? And I think that all the money and resources, everyone paused what project they were doing and focused on this one thing. And that's not something that really has been done in modern times as far as a vaccine. So of course it was fast. We have the knowledge, we have prior knowledge, we have money, backing, funding. Of course it's going to go fast. And I think that because we were in a state of emergency, there was an added benefit to kind of push this along. Yes, that adds to people's fear, but I think that if you look back and understand why the speed makes sense, then that can alleviate a little bit more of your fear. And that's what John is talking about, educating yourself instead of hearing something and saying, oh yeah, that was fast. And that's the end of the discussion. That's the end. You know what I mean? This is fast. I'm scared. And that's the end of
trust them.
Yeah.
I don't trust
Too
it.
fast.
Yeah, too fast. I don't like that speed. I didn't like it.
Right.
No, and
Right.
I was like that too. You know, my sisters and I, my sister texted me. She got the email as well, like, oh, the vaccine is ready. So she called me and I'm like, yes. And she's like, are you getting it? And I was like, eventually, yeah. And she's like, it's too fast. It's too fast. And like, these are doctors, you know, we're doctors saying like, we don't like the speed, but you do have to educate yourself instead of sitting in that fear. You have to do something with that. And
here's what's funny. So if you ever go to any emergency department and do we have these surveys that people will actually take. And if you've been to an emergency department, you may have gotten a call and they're like, you know, how was your visit? How was your stay? You know, did the doctor treat you with respect? Were the nurses attentive to your needs? You know, the number one thing that makes people give us high ratings?
What?
Speed. Whether they were fast, whether you got back in time, you know, got back fast, whether they got you in and out fast. So it's so funny how we have these perceptions of what is good with speed. It is a paradox that, you know, I don't know. Go to a restaurant and you got to wait too long to eat food that you didn't cook. Man, they were too slow. It's funny how people prioritize what's important as far as speed. And granted, I get it. I like to call it the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. That's for my nerds out there in the audience, that you cannot be accurate and, you know the speed of something at the same time. That's actually talking about particles around the electron, but it's true. So there is some accuracy that is sacrificed with speed. That's just inherently, but we try to approximate a balance where there's enough of both. And Chidi, you hit it on the head. Just
again, I've hit it on the head again.
Hit it on the head. Just because you just saw this doesn't mean that it just popped up.
Right.
We talked about this. Gerard, you hit it. You said the sentinel event. It is not that last straw that broke the camel's back. It's all those straws over years have been stacking over time. So this vaccination and a vaccine in the form of mRNA vaccine had been worked on 35 years ago by a woman who was laughed at. I forget her name, but she's been working on saying, hey, you know, I think we should start using mRNA messenger RNA, ribonucleic acid, as the starter instead of attenuated or killing viruses or doing those things or just giving viral particles. And they laughed at her. 35 years later, she had been working on all this stuff. Now we're doing it. So is it fast, or you're just now being made aware of it, so you think it's fast?
Exactly. That's basically it. And a shout out to the women out there that are really doing it for these vaccines. There's another woman that's come across my screen, Kizzy. I think she's Kismekia Corbett, and she was one of the lead researchers on the vaccine. And she's young and she's Black and she's cute. Yeah. And I'm just like, she's out here getting it. Honestly, she's the one who's like, the only way we're going to get through this is with science. And I just think that for her to be one of the faces of this just is a testament of where we are in our time and like Black women getting things done as usual. So shout out to her. I didn't want this thing to go by without like.
No. We salute. We said that two things are very important in this, and this is tenet. So we've been actually. I don't know if you guys realize this, but we've been actually using the manifesto all throughout this. We spit tenet number one, that the most effective forms of medicine are education and prevention. Tenet number 10, or principle number 10 in the manifesto, is that time and relationship are our most valuable resources. Each one augments the other. That's the paraphrase. So the fact that you have groups of people who are collaborating over time gives you a wealth of resource, a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of momentum to make big changes, like a vaccine that seems like it comes out of nowhere. That's the beauty thing. When you include Black, brown, white, any other subcategory of the subjective category of race, and all the rainbow of gender that goes along with this, and you value those people and their input in that, you've just built this coalition and this mass that's able to do force equals mass times acceleration, become a force of change. So you guys, I'm gonna pick up the mic and throw it down and walk off the stage like like I'm a man Eddie Murphy and Coming to America, Sexual Chocolate. But that's a mic drop. Sexual chocolate. That is a mic drop. When you take people and you respect them from all walks of life, you say, you have something valuable to add to this. Come and join this. And that's what we did in this. We took a world. We didn't just call it a Chinese virus. We didn't just call it, a poor people's disease. We didn't just call it a lesbian gay disease. We did all these things, and we brought people together from all walks of life. And we hopefully will make a positive change in what was, probably one of the more devastating pandemics in our recent lifetime. Now, hold it. I'm going to pause.
Word up. Know what I'm saying? I ain't fronting with nobody else. You know when Smitty give me the word, you know what I mean? I got to let knowledge be heard.